I told my husband I was out with friends that night. But fate had other plans. He happened to be at the exact same restaurant. The moment our eyes locked from across the room, it felt like gravity shifted beneath me. My hand froze in midair, a fork of risotto suspended just inches from my lips. And there he was, Nathan, my sweet, dependable husband, standing barely 20 feet away, his eyes fixed on me with a look I can't erase from my memory. There was shock in his expression. Pain. But more than anything, there was a chilling awareness. The kind that hits when the truth suddenly, brutally sinks in. He knew. He knew I had lied. But before you pass judgment, let me tell you how it all unraveled, how I ended up caught in a devastating trap of my own creation. I'm Evelyn. And until that night, I honestly believed I had everything neatly under control. My marriage to Nathan felt stable, familiar. We had been a couple for 7 years, married for 5. Life had slipped into a rhythm of shared routines, mortgage payments, and 2 golden retrievers that we treated like children. But the passion that once sparked between us? It had slowly flickered out. Somewhere along the way, we stopped being partners and started behaving like co-tenants, sharing bills and exchanging courteous good nights. Then Eric entered the picture. He was the new guy at my office, self-assured, effortlessly charming, with a bit of a wild streak that made him dangerously intriguing. There was something about him that pulled me in, bit by bit. He noticed things Nathan hadn't paid attention to in years: my fresh haircut, the cinnamon I sprinkled in my coffee, the new shade of polish on my nails. At first, I didn't think it was cheating. Harmless chats by the copier turned into playful DMs. Those messages led to lunches that stretched far longer than they should have. And eventually, came a Friday evening where I simply didn't go home. I told myself it was a one-time lapse. That I'd put a stop to it. But I didn't. Instead, I started telling Nathan I was having more girls' nights. He never questioned it. That only made it easier. Too easy. Then came last Saturday. Eric had booked us a quiet table at a tucked-away Mediterranean spot downtown. It wasn't one of our usual places, so I felt safe enough to go. I even teased him that we were starting to get careless. He gave a smug little smile and said, "Maybe I want us to get caught." I should have seen that as a warning. But instead, I laughed. I texted Nathan and told him I was going to Claire's for a spa night. Claire, my best friend, and my usual cover story. But this time she wasn't even in town. Still, I lied. "We're doing facials and wine. Might crash there," I wrote. He replied, "Have fun. Love you." God, that message hit like a punch in the chest. When I walked into the restaurant with Eric, I felt daring, confident, almost like myself again. I wore a silk blouse that Nathan hadn't complimented in months. For once, I didn't feel invisible. I felt alive. We were seated in the back, tucked into a quiet corner that felt private. Safe. At least I thought so. About an hour in, just after we finished our appetizers, I heard a sound that turned my blood cold, a familiar laugh. I would have recognized it anywhere. Nathan. I turned my head slowly, as if my body already knew what was coming. There he stood, next to the hostess, scanning the room. I dropped my head, panic flooding every nerve in my body. Eric leaned in, confused. "What's wrong?" "My husband," I whispered, barely breathing. "He's here." Eric's eyes widened. "You're serious?" "Get up," I said urgently, grabbing my purse. "We need to leave. Now." But it was already too late. Maybe it was the fear written all over my face. Or maybe karma had simply caught up with me. Because just as I pushed back my chair to leave, Nathan's eyes found mine. And in that instant, time came to a standstill. He didn't make a scene. He didn't shout. He just stared. I watched his face change in slow, painful motion, first confusion, then clarity, and finally, heartbreak. Like watching a flame snuff out, the spark in his eyes disappeared. "I'm sorry," I murmured, my voice trembling. He didn't respond. He just turned around and walked away. I bolted after him, barely aware I'd left my coat behind. Eric didn't even cross my mind. "Nathan!" I shouted, weaving through the packed restaurant, shoving past bodies and whispered stares. By the time I reached the front, he was already outside. The winter wind hit me like a slap, cutting through the thin fabric of my blouse. I spotted him standing near his car, fists clenched, his breath visible in the freezing air. "Please," I said desperately, "just let me explain." He didn't look at me. "Explain what?" His voice was cold and low. "That you're not actually with Claire? That while I'm out buying milk and walking the dogs, you're sleeping with some guy from your office?" I winced. It wasn't meant to go this way. He finally turned to face me, and the pain in his eyes knocked the breath from my chest. "How long?" I hesitated. That pause, barely a second, was my undoing. He gave a bitter laugh. "That long, huh?" 3 months, I said quietly. 3 months, he repeated, like the words tasted foul. "And during that time, you looked me in the eye every day. Slept beside me. Told me you loved me. I do love you." He stepped back. "Don't." Silence opened up between us, wide, jagged, unbearable. Then, his voice broke through. "Who else knew?" I couldn't answer. Because yes, Claire had known. And probably a couple coworkers had figured it out, too. I had made our marriage into a secret everyone was in on, except him. He shook his head in disbelief. "You made me into a punchline," he said, his voice thick with disgust. That's when I broke down. The sobs came fast, uncontrolled, sharp. "I didn't want to hurt you. I was just lost." We both were. "So instead of being honest, you chose to lie. I thought you'd stopped caring." He looked at me for what felt like forever. Then his voice cracked again, so quiet it almost didn't reach me. "You know what's ironic?" I shook my head, wiping my tears with trembling fingers. "I was here tonight to surprise you," he said. "Picked up your favorite food, was going to swing by Claire's and drop it off. Just to remind you I still gave a damn." I covered my mouth as my body shook with grief. "Oh my God." "Yeah," he whispered. "Turns out, I was the only one still trying." He opened the car door. "Nathan, please, don't leave. Don't do this." But the door closed with a final thud. And just like that, he was gone. I stood on the curb, dazed, my whole world collapsing around me. Strangers walked by, a few of them glancing my way, curious. I didn't care. I had wrecked the one thing that ever felt solid. That night, I didn't go to Eric. I didn't answer his texts or calls. I went home alone. I walked into our bedroom, his flannel shirt still draped over the chair, the empty dog bed that he must have taken to another room. A framed photo from our honeymoon smiled back at me from the nightstand. We looked so happy in that picture, so blissfully unaware. I tried reaching out. I called. I texted. I left voicemails filled with apologies. No response. Days passed. Then weeks. One morning, a plain manila envelope showed up in my mailbox. No return address. No note. Inside were the divorce papers. That's when I knew, he was gone for good. Claire cut ties with me soon after. She told me she couldn't be part of the wreckage anymore. I understood. I didn't blame her. Eric reached out once. I blocked his number without reading the message. I didn't want him. Not really. What I wanted was a second chance with the man I betrayed. But time doesn't rewind, and regret doesn't heal what's been shattered. It all started with one lie. One small escape from the dull ache of routine. And in the process, I lost everything that ever felt like home. Now, here I sit, pen in hand, signing the documents I never imagined I'd see. Grieving a man who was willing to forgive the monotony of marriage, but not the cruelty of betrayal. Even now, when I close my eyes, I still see him, back in that restaurant, staring at me in disbelief. The exact moment he saw through me. And realized who I really was.